All right, hello everyone. We're just going to give it a few seconds to let people filter in here and then we'll get started. I would say talk amongst yourselves, but you are all home, so maybe talk with your family members. Okay, great. The list is growing and growing, very exciting. All right, let it get to a good spot and then we'll get started. Okay, that sounds good. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Kinton. I am an assistant dean of admission at William & Mary. And first and foremost, congratulations on your acceptance. And we are so hopeful that you are going to join the William & Mary community in the fall. Thank you so much for choosing to participate in some of our digital days for admitted students content. We're trying to really share as much as we can about William & Mary and make sure to check out more about William & Mary throughout the week and next week as well. Just some quick plugs. We have a lot of great student-driven content, including some virtual tours and some student panels, but y'all are here to talk about the Global Research Institute. So with us, we have one of their associates, Martha, and I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll go into some housekeeping and then let you get started with your presentation, okay?
Sure. I'm Martha. Nice to virtually meet everyone. I work on communications and engagement at the Global Research Institute, or as we call it, GRI.
Great. And it looks like we have one of our other colleagues, the director as well. Hi, Rebecca. We just got started. So if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then I'll share some housekeeping and we'll get started, okay?
Yeah, of course, Peter. Hi, thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to talking with you about the Global Research Institute and ways that you can get involved even right as a freshman. I'm Rebecca Latourelle, and as Peter said, I am the Director of Programs and Outreach at GRI. And so one of the things I love most about my job is the chance to chat with new students, much like yourselves, about ways to get involved and then kind of see people's trajectory getting involved with research and programming throughout their time at William & Mary.
Great. So just to give you all kind of the lay of the land of how this is going to work, Rebecca and Martha are going to give a presentation. It should last maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then afterwards, we will have a Q&A function. I just want to point everyone in the direction of the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screens. Please feel free to submit your questions there should you have any. Try not to use the chat feature just because your question will likely get lost there. But I will be helping to manage the Q&A and be helping to prompt some questions once we get to that portion. And with that, I will let you guys get started. So thank you so much. Take it away.
All right. I'm excited to talk with you about some of GRI's objectives, a bit about our past work, and then Rebecca will speak a little bit about some events we put on and unique research opportunities that we have in place for students. So GRI is William & Mary's multidisciplinary hub for applied global research. You can see our mission statement here. And what that means is that GRI is open to students of all class years, all academic backgrounds and majors, and then also, really importantly, all levels of research experience. We find this is what helps to make our work really multidisciplinary and able to function really well in a range of decision-making settings. So we pair students or student teams with faculty advisors, and those faculty advisors can offer them not only exposure to experts in a relevant field or research methods training along the way, but primarily support and mentorship throughout the process so that students feel really comfortable pitching new ideas or asking key questions that ultimately tie in to the development of new research. And along the way, GRI remains really committed to nurturing community among students. So as much as we love inviting truly world-class speakers to come talk with students about developments in the field of international relations, or also sometimes professional opportunities, it's just as rewarding to coordinate social gatherings like barbecues or more informal coffee conversations to give students a network of people on campus that is also interested in similar topics. And we find that this relates to our multidisciplinary approach because we're able to connect students who might not be meeting in the classroom if they're studying different subjects, for instance. GRI's model consists of incubating, piloting, scaling, and sustaining ideas. So we want all of our research outputs to be able to make real world differences over a period of time. And for that reason, it's not uncommon for GRI researchers to revisit past publications or try to update them to keep them as modern and pertinent in the policy space as possible. I'll briefly outline a little bit about the objectives of each research lab that we have so you can get an idea of the different streams that are available and what you might be interested in. I will mention a lot of our students jump among different labs over the course of their career at William & Mary, or they join multiple at once, so you don't have to feel like you're confining your interest to one particular topic. After all, our mission is very interested in preserving multidisciplinary approaches. So at AidData, students can track investments in international development. At Ignite, students are able to research the distribution of global health resources through a lens of equity. And obviously this is a very relevant topic right now, but it always is. And the director of this lab, an epidemiologist, Dr. Carrie Dolan, has been really instrumental in William & Mary and the Williamsburg community's response to the pandemic. At Nuke Lab, students can study issues related to nuclear security, like military capabilities, proliferation, deterrence efforts. At TRIP, students have the opportunity to engage with policymakers and scholars in international relations to see what experts are thinking about a number of current events. Blockchain Lab looks to develop blockchain technology to streamline practices like shipping or supply chain management or trade processes. At PIPS, students have the opportunity to develop proposals related to emerging national security topics. And then at the end of the year, they get to present those not only to the William & Mary community and their family and peers, but also to policymakers. At the American Bosnian Collaboration, students at William & Mary team up with students from Bosnia, and they're able to foster cross-cultural communication in classrooms. And William & Mary students are also able to travel to the region. And then at the International Justice Lab, students research human rights, transitional justice measures, track updates related to the International Criminal Court. And the director of this lab, Dr. Zabago, really makes an effort to incorporate students when she gets opportunities. So for instance, she's pretty regularly published in Foreign Policy, the Washington Post, very high profile places, and it's not unusual for students to also be in the byline with her. And at the Africa Research Center, researchers track policy developments, updates to society related to the continent. So as I mentioned, the faculty and student collaboration element is really what drives forward our research. We want students to feel empowered to ask relevant questions and to keep digging as they propose new knowledge and really shape the world that they live in and see day to day. And we find that this is a really effective approach and people feel very comfortable on campus at GRI. So an example of this would be at Ignite Lab, which is directed by the epidemiologist that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Carrie Dolan. She was working with a student to develop an economic impact evaluation. And the student throughout her research process was encountering a lot of gaps in existing knowledge. And when she brought this to Dr. Dolan's attention just to kind of ask how to proceed, Dr. Dolan actually motivated her to author a whole other paper about the topic. And she was able to serve as the lead author on this paper. And it also ultimately got picked up by the British Medical Journal. So this is obviously a very special story and a highlight, but certainly not something that's surprising, just given the supportive, uplifting atmosphere at GRI. And not all of our research takes place in Williamsburg. We coordinate opportunities for students to get out and about and begin observing and applying their research to the real world. And one way that we do this is through our Summer Fellows program, where we work with international organizations and send students to regions where their research might be of particular interest, or perhaps if they've developed a set of recommendations, locations where those could be applied really well. So examples of past work involve a student team traveling to Colombia to observe community perceptions of police presence, or to Liberia to observe how team members at Monrovia Football Academy have also developed leadership capabilities throughout their time as athletes. So that's a little bit about some of the basics of GRI, a bit about our programs, and Rebecca will launch into a discussion of some other programs and signature events that we offer.
Perfect. Thanks, Martha. Do you want me to share my screen now?
If you'd like, I'm happy to.
If I just tell you when to click?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, wonderful. So as Martha mentioned, there are a number of different ways for students to get involved beyond working as research assistants in the different labs. One of them is the Summer Fellows program she just talked about. We also have a funding window for student innovation, and this is really important to GRI, not just because we value student ideas and think that they can grow and mature at the GRI, but also because GRI actually started and was born out of two innovative student ideas that are still projects at the Institute more than a decade later. And so that's AidData and TRIP that Martha mentioned earlier. Both originated when students went to their faculty members and said, in the case of AidData, the data that I need to examine the impact of aid on environmental outcomes in developing countries doesn't exist. And so he set to create that data set. And AidData today still does some of that similar work, but also is, essentially a small think tank employing 35 professional staff and up to 100 students at a time. And so we have an annual innovation funding window where in the past it's taken the format sometimes of a large scale kind of pitch competition. With COVID this year, we had students write their research proposals and get letters of support from faculty mentors, and then we reviewed them. It's a really great way if you have an idea that maybe came from your work on a research project or came through another experience you had during school, that you can actually get funding to hire your own team of students to work as research assistants for you and kind of try to move your idea from seed to something bigger. So that's our student innovation window. Martha, can you change to the next slide? Perfect. We also offer some classes. We are not a degree granting department, so you can't minor in the Global Research Institute, but we do teach classes. Our director is a member of the government department, and he routinely does teach in the government department. But then we also work with different partners around campus, like the Reeves Center for Study Away and Study Abroad opportunities, the Washington Center, Entrepreneurship Hub, the Public Policy Department, and the IR Department to build classes that maybe are a bit unusual compared to the rest of the classes that you will take in your time as a student. So those might involve weeks of coursework in Williamsburg, and then also a couple of weeks in the field, or a strong element of meeting policy practitioners. Right now, I'm teaching a class that's part of the Washington Center's semester program, and each week we have a number of speakers come and talk to the students in the class about how their work in international development or national security could tackle things like climate change and other transnational challenges that are facing the world. Next slide. All right, we also host a robust set of events. Of course, as you all know, these have been virtual for some time now. We're really looking forward to getting back in person, but even in the virtual format, we found some great ways to connect students with alums and practitioners, as well as to just bring really interesting conversations to campus. So just at the end of March, we hosted an event on presidential administrations in the first 100 days and kind of what is so important about the first 100 days, what matters during that time, how does it set the tone for a presidency, what kinds of initiatives and kind of stakes in the ground do you have to plant during that first 3 months of an administration. And we had a great set of panelists and a fantastic moderator. One of the panelists was, well, a couple were had ties to William and Mary, but one, an alum, is now a congresswoman representing a district in Florida. So we had a really great group of people just bringing their perspective to William and Mary students and alums. And we, again, look forward to doing this in person soon. All right. And then we also have the opportunity to work as an e-intern. This is one of our programs. And the e-internship program has actually been around for years, and it's always been remote by design. And so this is really great for students who maybe want to work for part of the State Department or the diplomatic courier or different parts of research units within the military, but they're based on, based at campus in Williamsburg. And so it's been a really nice way historically for students to gain some of that practical experience while being virtual. And then we were ready and able to scale it up during the pandemic. And so since the pandemic started, I want to say maybe about more than 150 students now have been e-interns working and gaining real world practical experience, both during the summer and during the academic year. And then this is our invitation to you to join us. We hope that if you do come to William & Mary, that we'll see you at our house on Scotland Street, at a barbecue, or at a resume workshop. And we really do welcome, as Martha mentioned earlier, students from all disciplines and all years. So please stop by, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, great. I mean, as a former government major at William & Mary, I'm insanely jealous and upset that I did not take advantage of the opportunities that I just learned about. So all of you participants in this chat right now are very lucky that you get to start from scratch. We do have one question so far. So do Monroe scholars have priority consideration for joining these projects, or are all William & Mary students considered equally?
Yeah, good question. All students are considered equally. Students who have specific skills and experiences that the research labs are looking for, of course, have an advantage, just like you would in any job application process. So we're just working on a roundup of the summer opportunities earlier this week, and some projects might actually want you to be able to code in Python. And that means that somebody like me would not be eligible for that position, but there's a really wide range depending on the skills and experiences that you have, and also some that really just are looking for somebody who, is professional, detail oriented, willing to get down into the details of creating a new data set. And I started at 8Data about 8 years ago, and then moved over to GRI 3 years ago. But when I was at 8Data, I frequently had a team of 20 to 30 research assistants. And really the main thing I was looking for was, are you willing to dig into the details? And somebody who was willing and enthusiastic about the project really had a fair shot at getting a position and did not need a lot of prior experience. And I know especially for freshmen, that can be a concern of, I haven't had a research position yet. Will I be eligible? And I think, my answer in short, I guess, would be not for everything, but there are lots of opportunities.
All right, and so another one just came in, and how can freshmen get involved in GRI? Can freshmen get involved in things of that nature?
Yeah, freshmen are definitely welcome to apply for any and all roles that interest them and to attend our events, get to know our team. But the main way that we post our opportunities is through a weekly email called the GRI Digest. It goes out each Monday, and students are able to subscribe and receive that and stay attuned to our opportunities. Right now, for instance, we have a lot of summer ones that we're beginning to advertise, but really throughout the year, the labs are often looking for students to help with research projects.
Great. So there isn't like an application that can be filled out before students arrive to campus or anything, or when does that really start, I guess, for first year students?
Yeah, usually depending on the project, there will be different application requirements, materials, and forms.
Great.
Yeah.
Another student, sorry.
I'll add a little bit to that. If you decide that you're coming to William & Mary and think you would like to get involved, definitely recommend that you sign up for our digest. And even if it's just the summer before the school year starts, you'll start to see sort of the flavor of types of things that we do and events that we share. And then, like Martha said, each research lab manages their own hiring process, but we tend to see kind of waves of hiring at the beginning of each semester. And typically, most research labs do not start their hiring until classes start for the semester for new hires. Sometimes people know they're returning and they just will keep working throughout the year.
Great, that's really helpful. Is there can you join the digest without having that official William & Mary email quite yet? So if a student wanted to pre-enroll, great. Matthew is asking if one of y'all could elaborate more on the Python coding opportunities. I think a lot of students are interested in, you know, the computer science aspect of this work.
Yeah, for sure. So Matthew, I will perhaps give you an answer that is only somewhat satisfactory, which is that I don't remember all the details off the top of my head for that specific opportunity. But one of the things that's really exciting about being part of the Global Research Institute is that it's this wide range of skills and disciplines. And so we do have a software development team that's at AData, and also at AData, a variety of different research projects, some of which are funded with external groups like the State Department or different foundations, where there is a data science element. And the data science program at William & Mary actually originated at GRI when we first piloted some data science classes, you know, about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And so it's definitely something that is kind of a lot of our projects are steeped in, and I would really encourage you to, you know, take a look at the digest if and when you decide to come to William & Mary. But it's a nice way, I think, throughout all the projects. A theme is it's a really great way to gain practical experience that complements your coursework while you're enrolled during the semester and based in Williamsburg.
And I'll just drop in the chat a link to a blog post that just came out about a data science project that 3 students were able to collaborate on. They tracked government responsiveness data in the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai and found which issues the government was more and less responsive to.
That's awesome. Thanks, Martha.
Well, I was trying to share some engagement links in the chat, so we check in the chat. And also, Matthew, you're welcome. We do it all for you. So other questions, Mary's wondering if your project involves travel, would that happen over the break, during the summer, during the semester? How does that work?
Yeah, it's less common for travel to happen during the semester, but during breaks is common. And then, for example, the Summer Fellows program, as the name might tip you off, that is all travel that takes place during the summer, where in a typical non-pandemic year, students would spend up to 10 weeks living overseas and doing research or working for a partner organization there.
Great. Stephanie is wondering, what does a typical application entail? Do you have to have a cover letter, a resume, references, things of that nature?
It does range. Usually for longer term research projects, if the student is initiating a proposal, that will usually need a recommendation from a faculty member that they'll be partnering with. But for research assistantships, often it's filling out a Google form, answering a few short answer questions about work ethic, work style, preferences, and then giving some detail about past experience in a resume.
Okay, great. One of our attendees is wondering, you know, what are some examples of the e-internship opportunities that students have been a part of in the past, or even right now, if we've had a tremendous growth in that realm? Yeah,
sure. So I saw that come up in the chat, and I just pulled up a few sample past partner organizations for the e-internship. And I'll just read this list out to you. So Air Combat Command, Center for International Maritime Security, the Defense Innovation Board, the Global Environmental Facility, the National Defense University, U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command, and that's commonly known as TRADOC, and they take a ton of e-interns typically, and U.S. European Command. And then some of the past research topics that students have done in the e-intern program have included climate change, cybersecurity, European security and defense, evolution of the operational environment, social media and ISIS, South China Sea, and the future of peace and warfare. And one of the other cool things about the e-internship is that students can receive academic credit for their e-internship if they write a paper during their e-internship. And that is all in partnership with our e-internship director, Kay Floyd.
Great. Also, I just want to say, as questions keep coming in, should for whatever reason that we run out of time and we're not able to continue on with the questions, the GRI, I'm losing my words today, I'm sorry y'all, will be holding a department chat next Saturday on April 17th from 3 to 4. So if you want to join that Zoom meeting and ask another question yourself, maybe it's percolating over the next week, by all means, please join. And they would be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Another question that we've gotten is, are there research opportunities for students who are interested in the medical field? I know that you mentioned Ignite has, medical ties, but what about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I would be inclined to direct you. At Ignite, the director has guided students through projects that have studied delivery of healthcare outcomes. So whether it be vaccines on an international level, one student recently is tracking various COVID responses across 113 countries. They've tracked how pediatric surgery has influenced long-term healthcare outcomes and also economic outcomes. So that's probably where I would direct you at the GRI for anything medical or health related.
Cool. Ingrid is wondering, is there a by-country database where students can look for e-intern opportunities? And if so, where can we find it? Or will internships no longer be e-internship if classes return to face-to-face? Two questions there.
Ingrid, I love your idea of the by-country database, which sadly does not exist. When we talk about our website and kind of outreach to students, I tend to sound like a broken record in talking about the digest, which is just the best place to kind of keep your eyes peeled for opportunities. And the way it typically will work with the e-internships in particular is that Director Kay Floyd will put together a running list of all the opportunities. And she updates it kind of as people are placed on a rolling basis. And so that's something that it's not a directory, but you could, tab over to that Google document and skim through what's available. And we're taking a similar approach with rounding up more GRI-wide summer opportunities in a Google Doc, which is going out via the digest. And then I anticipate that our e-internship program will remain an e-internship program. It predates COVID. It was really great to have the infrastructure there and a director in place so we could scale it up during COVID. But I think there's the value that students found in having that e-internship opportunity pre-pandemic will still exist after the pandemic. And I would even imagine that we might see, kind of speaking outside of GRI, even more institutions continue to offer remote opportunities if they've seen that, hey, this can go well and this can work. And it might be more of like, touching base a couple times a semester in person, something like that.
Forgot that I muted myself. There was a motorcycle gang that was riding by my apartment and I didn't want to disturb. Sarah's also wondering, are there any paid research positions, or is all of this unpaid, paid work? What does that look like for students?
A lot of the work at GRI is paid. The scale will range, and oftentimes employees who have been there a bit longer can receive pay upgrades over time. But yeah, most of the work is paid.
That's great. A lot of on-campus involvements end up being unpaid, but it's always nice when you're able to find like meaningful work on campus that is paid. That's great.
Yeah. And I would also add just that that's something that we're really working on. So for some research labs, they have kind of an internship period, a certain number of hours where students are more in training, and then it converts to a paid position. And we're trying to move as much as possible to all students are getting paid for all work, or they're getting credit for their work. So it's one or the other where you're not working for free. And, we know that that's one of the most important things that we can do to attract and retain a more diverse group of student employees. And so it's been something that we've been talking about for a while of like, how do we make sure we get more and more of our positions as a total percentage, something where you're either getting compensation in the form of credits or in the form of a paycheck.
Gotcha, cool. Those are all the questions that we have in the Q&A. I do have a question myself. I know that you mentioned the William & Mary Washington Center. So can you explain does the GRI have a relation? Like, are they linked to the Washington Center in any way, or are they two separate entities?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter, and maybe one that the students are wondering about as well. So we are separate entities. Our staff and faculty at the GRI have frequently taught in existing Washington Center programs, which are a really cool way to get some time up in DC. The semester program typically includes intensive coursework and also a full-time internship for the course of the semester. So it's a really great way to gain work experience as well, depending on which Washington Center program you're part of. And it will, it's something that we really love to do in partnering with the Washington Center, but we are different and distinct and happy to collaborate as two separate units.
I see that we got a question come in saying that this is being recorded, and yes, we are going to post this available for students on the digital DFAS page, which you can access through your accepted portal. So we had another student ask, are there summer opportunities available at the Washington Center? I know the answer to that, as I did the Summer Washington Center when I was a student, but I'll let y'all talk about that if you'd like to.
No, Peter, please, you talk about the Summer Institutes.
Yes, so as they are separate entities, the William Mary Washington Center offers a lot of different opportunities. In regards to the summer, they do have the Summer Institutes, which is a really unique experience where you get to take a very hyper condensed class and then fill the rest of your summer with a full-time internship. And the William & Mary Washington Center will provide you with great resources towards finding said internship, and they'll prepare you for the success. So while they may not be, handing you an internship, they will be providing you with a network and connections where you can go and kind of land yourself a really, meaningful and fulfilling internship for your summer, where that will be giving you course credit, and you also might be getting paid. So when I did the summer internships, I had classmates that were working with the EPA or working with the government relations department of the Boys and Girls Club. There were some students who were working for major media groups like CNN and things like that. But what's really interesting is that, in kind of relating back to what Rebecca was talking about with site visits and speakers and things like that, that class that you're taking at the beginning is going to be really intensive with site visits and speakers that are coming to talk to you about what that field specifically looks like in the context of DC. So I myself was doing a class on leadership and community engagement. And so I got to meet with people like Paula Reed, who's now a White House correspondent in the White House every day, or former FBI Director James Comey. My internship was a really interesting one where I got to work for a nonprofit that was started by a William & Mary Board of Visitors member. And it actually ended up sending me abroad for half of my summer. So I spent my sophomore summer in Cambodia. So there are many opportunities that come with the William & Mary Summer Institute. So I definitely check that out. I'll post a link in a second, but that's my 2 cents. So, yeah.
Now, I know that there are many, many opportunities for those of you on the call to bounce in and out of different sessions to learn about different departments and different elements of being a William & Mary student, but I'm happy to broaden the aperture, and Martha and I can do our best at answering, if you have any questions about Williamsburg or other things to do in the area, and happy to, do our best to answer anything that might be on your mind as you're considering your options.
I guess just tell me more about the barbecues while we're waiting for more questions to come in. I had so many friends who were like, oh, I'm going to get hot dogs.
Yeah, the barbecues are, they're sort of our signature thing. We really love to host people and bring our community together. We are just as kind of a touch off main campus on Scotland Street. It's a couple blocks, and we have this old kind of Victorian style yellow house with a wraparound porch and rocking chairs. When I first went for my interview, I walked up and I was really confused because I'd read about, all this cutting edge research taking place. And I was like, where am I? Am I in the right zone? But it's just a really collegial place to be. And everyone is like, their community events. So anybody is welcome. You don't have to work at GRI to come to the barbecues. And our director, Mike Tierney, his philosophy is just that it's really important to bring people's ideas together and to do it over food. And so we, obviously not in the pandemic, but pre-pandemic and also post-pandemic, we're looking forward to hosting our barbecues again and hope to see some of you there in the future.
I'll come as well. It'll be great.
Yes, Peter, come. Also, a couple times we've done like a crawfish boil, which is epic. And a couple of our staff members have a really great crawfish boil recipe, and they've converted it all into formulas for spreadsheets. So you just put in how many people you're going to serve, and it tells you everything you need to buy. And that's a really fun one.
Really handled like the true academics y'all are.
Yeah, it's a little nerdy.
So from what I'm getting from this, before we, take on another question, and I think a lot of students when they're choosing colleges and they're thinking about, where am I going to spend 4 years? Where am I going to devote my time and my innovation and my research ideas that I have? I think they get really concerned with the idea of professor-student interaction. So could you guys talk a little bit about that? So like how hands-on are the faculty members that are working in these research labs with the students? Is it a lot of hands-on work? Are the students feeling really supported? Is it more friendly and less intimidating is what I'm trying to get at, I suppose?
Yes, definitely the latter, a friendly vibe all around. And oftentimes the students will feel really supported on projects that they're partnering with professors for, and then apply beyond that for things like GRI innovation funding, where they then are more in the driver's seat. So it's our mission to offer not only support throughout the research process and training, but also just support in general for college students.
Great. One student was asking in regards to, are there summer research grants that provide a stipend in campus housing, and how do you go about applying for those if there are?
Yeah, there are, again, so many disclaimers with the pandemic. This summer, we don't anticipate research housing being available for students, but typically there are paid research opportunities at GRI. There are also a number of different summer research grants that are available through the Charles Center on campus that students can apply for. And then every year, hundreds of students do live in free research housing on campus. Which is a really great kind of additional perk to that research grant or that paycheck, is that you're able to live in William and Mary housing. And so typically, at least at GRI, the summer is one of our busiest times, where we'll have, up to 150 full-time student employees working as research assistants. And they're, quite busy working for their research lab and with those obligations, but we also try to plan like some social events, movie nights, blueberry picking, like various things to kind of break up the pace of the research, which, sometimes you need a little bit of a social distraction as well.
Sure. So that's a really great segue into a question that we got. So, what's your take on the William and Mary community, and, how would you describe the social environment? I'm sure we all could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, Peter, you're the only one of us who is a William and Mary alum. Do you want to?
Oh, I guess I am. Yeah. Wow. Not to put myself on the spot here. No, I mean, I think if you were to ask any person, whether that is a William and Mary student, a faculty member, a staff member, or even just someone who lives in Williamsburg, Virginia, what their favorite thing about William and Mary would be, it's really the people. Which sounds so cliche, and I know it's like such a buzzword for everyone to be like, the community is the best part, but it really is. And I hope that you guys are able to see that over the next week and a half with DFAS programming and things like that. But what is really special about William and Mary is that we are doing these really exciting things like what we're talking about with Global Research Institute, or even in your own major if you decide not to get involved. But you'll find that everyone is very passionate about their own work, but also about you and what you're doing. And they want to make sure that you're doing well. It's an incredibly collaborative place. It's an incredibly supportive place. It's not cutthroat at all, even though people are doing such innovative and creative and just really like cool stuff. Thought I was going to stick the landing a little bit smoother there, but I did not. But in terms of the social life, I mean, we could talk about this all day long. I mean, there are going to be tons of things that you can get involved in, whether it's one of our official clubs and organizations, or maybe you find yourself with like a club sport, or maybe it's something like, I don't know, something like the Global Research Institute that's taking you to do fun things like blueberry picking or a crawfish boil. Like you're gonna find things to do. With a school of our size that is incredibly close knit, you are going to be constantly meeting new people, but you're always gonna have familiar faces as you walk around campus or even, you know, 1 block away on Scotland Street. So I think I wouldn't worry too much about the social environment. You're gonna have fun. There are gonna be things that occupy your time. And I think we're really cognizant of that, because if you are only gonna come to William & Mary and study and go to the library and go to class, you're gonna burn out really quickly. So we wanna make sure that you're having tons of time for social fulfillment so that your 4 years are more sustainable and fun. And, you know, the best 4 years of your life. So much fun that you end up working for William & Mary after you graduate.
Peter, you're making me jealous of your William & Mary degree there.
Well, you're making me jealous of the work that you're doing.
So not having been at William & Mary as an undergrad, I can't speak from that perspective, but from what I have observed.
Oh no, we've frozen just a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we froze just a little bit. You cut off at observed. And I was like, I guess we will not know.
So I think what I've seen over the years that I've worked with students and on student programming is really what Peter has described, really supportive environment where people are really engaged in the work that they do and in each other's lives and really interested. You know, at GRI, we have kind of a self-selecting group of people who want to make the world a better place. And so it's a lot of fun to interact with the students.
I'll say in my role, I often have the opportunity to talk with students about their research and feature them in posts across our social pages. And oftentimes, you know, they bring up the names of other students and highly recommend others. Have you talked to this person? So pretty much always a humble environment, always happy to uplift other people, and that's evident.
For sure. You know, we're all just like one tribe, one family. And, you know, if you know, you're succeeding, we're all succeeding. And if at any point, you know, you feel like you're not doing your best or you're feeling pretty low, well, then you have about 6,000 people behind you ready to raise you back up. And that's just students. That's not including faculty and staff like ourselves. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions before we part ways? A little bit. I do want to say, as a reminder, we do have that department chat with the GRI. I keep wanting to say GRE, but grad school's on my mind. And that will be next Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m. All right. So if we have no more questions, feel free to reach out to me should you have any more. My email is in my little window right there. And I'd be happy to connect you or point you in the right direction. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you on campus this fall. I hope you found this really helpful. And thank you, Martha and Rebecca, for all of your wonderful insight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone who attended.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great night.